Hello, everybody, and welcome to my room. It's been a while. Sorry about that. I wanted to take some time here and formulate some thoughts on Jann Wenner and the controversial statements that he made some weeks ago in a New York Times interview, which got him ousted from being on the board of directors of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame committee. Before I get started, I want to tell you, if you haven't read Sticky Fingers, The Life and Times of Jann Wenner by Joe Hagan, go out and read it now. Everything about that guy is in that book. At the end of the day, it's not a favorable portrait. And he interviewed a lot of the people. In fact, he interviewed Paul McCartney in that book. And one of the interesting things about the things that McCartney says in the book, and from the interviews he did, is that McCartney was unguarded. McCartney learned how to play the game. McCartney learned how to interview, be professional in interviews. Well, in this thing, he's unhinged. And I think we need more McCartney unhinged. When all this controversy happened, Joe Hagan even came out and said, "This is no surprise to me. This is who Jann Wenner is." So, flashback to September, in case you don't know. Jann Wenner is releasing, it has been released, another sort of self-serving book called The Masters. The Masters. These are people that he considers the masters of music, the masters of rock and roll. And these were interviews that he did with the people he considers the masters. So interviews with John Lennon, Pete Townsend, Bono, Mick Jagger, Bruce Springsteen, Jerry Garcia. And I think I did say Pete Townsend. If I didn't, Pete Townsend, I totally forgot. But it's those interviews. These interviews are these key interviews and the most memorable interviews of the masters that he conducted. These are the masters. These are who he considers the pantheon of rock and roll. And he was asked in the interview, and already the book was garnering controversy on why he included no females. Why he included no black musicians. And he really, if you go back and read the interview, it's still out there, and it's still out there. If you haven't hit the paywall yet on New York Times online, you could still read it. And it's very revealing about who Jann Wenner is and the sort of arrogance of the guy, So basically, he said that these people are not articulate. When he was challenged about Joni Mitchell, he said she never, she's a genius. That's not synonymous with genius, but in her work, in her work and in her life, she never expressed what or articulated what rock and roll is. And then he went on to black artists. He said Stevie Wonder, genius. I'm sort of paraphrasing it all here. And he basically said, maybe Curtis Mayfield, but in his eyes, they weren't articulate about the lifestyle and the music, as well as Pete Townsend or Mick Jagger, And then he said, well, maybe I should have included, just for PR's sake, a female and a black. That's his quote. And I'm like, really? Really? Stevie Wonder? I've read countless interviews with Stevie Wonder that just blew me away about music. Not just rock and roll or R&B, but music in general. And it also boggles my mind that he personally himself didn't feel the need over all these years to interview these people. He did finally say, well, maybe Marvin Gaye. I wish I could have interviewed him. Well, why didn't you interview Marvin Gaye while he was alive? Most of the people in the Masters book have become personal friends of Jann Wenner. I mean, we all know John Lennon, and he still considers John Lennon a friend. He says in the interview that he allowed John Lennon to edit the interview. For all of us Beatle fans on my channel here, we all know the fact that John told Jann, don't release my interview as a book. Jann Wenner did it anyways. See how he is there. And in Joe Hagan's book, Paul McCartney said that he was told that John called up Jann the next day after he gave the final interview and said, don't print this. I sort of changed my mind on the way I felt about XYZ. That I was in a particular mood that day, and Jann never did it. So John did feel betrayed by Jann Wenner. But you see how the guy kind of works here. I mean, we all know the inside stuff, and it's talked about in the Joe Hagan book that Jann in the Beatles breakup took the side of Lennon. He wanted to be buddies with John Lennon. So that's why Rolling Stone took a side in the Lennon versus McCartney thing. And we all know the original review in Rolling Stone of the McCartney album was a rave review until Jann said, no, I want a bad review. And from that point on, McCartney was getting horrible reviews in Rolling Stone. They trashed Ram. They definitely trashed Wildlife. They trashed Live and Let Die. They trashed Red Rose Speedway. It was only Band on the Run that they finally had to say, we can't trash this one. But getting back to what I was saying, all these masters on Jann's list were his personal friends. There was a Reader's Digest article, I think last year, when Jann was celebrating his birthday, or when his autobiography came out, or whatever, his anniversary, whatever it was, where it's a picture of him, Mick Jagger, Bono, and Bruce Springsteen, all arms around each other and laughing with each other. And you find out in the article, and I kind of think this is crossing the line of journalism, he's personal friends with them. He has Thanksgiving with Bono and his family. Bono considers him a part of his family. He goes sailing with Mick Jagger. You know, no wonder why U2 will always get a 5-star review in Rolling Stone, no matter how good the album is. Springsteen will always get a 5-star review in Rolling Stone, no matter how good the album is. The Stones, or Mick Jagger, Goddess in the Doorway. Keith Richards himself called it dog shit in the doorway. That says all you need to know, and I trust Keith over Jann Wenner. So, and he was asked in this interview about even the 5-star reviews, and he defended Goddess in the Doorway. He said it was only Keith who gave it bad review, and everybody ran with it, and it's. Yeah, and we could go on and on and on about this guy, but the bottom line is, if you really study the history of Jann Wenner, first off, I mean, Rolling Stone was nothing unique or new, okay? It was nothing unique or new. He borrowed the idea from Crawdaddy is what he did, and he wasn't the first person who started it. He started it in San Francisco with local San Francisco journalist Ralph Gleason. And I don't know what the history was between him and Gleason, but I think in a few years he was out. Jann Wenner knew San Francisco was the place at the time. That was the place of alternative culture at the time. And he sort of took a pro-San Francisco stance on the music, and they trashed everything coming out of LA in Rolling Stone. And In the mid-70s, like around 77, 78, he decided to close up shop in San Francisco and move Rolling Stone to the media capital of America, which is New York City. And my attitude there was like, why would you do that? He said San Francisco's a media cesspool. So he moves it to New York, what, to become legitimate? Along with Time and Newsweek and whatever else, all the major media's there. So they're now a part of the establishment, which is something that they were railing against, you know. Cream magazine was a good alternative to Rolling Stone. And eventually a lot of the great journalists from Rolling Stone jumped ship and went with Lester Bangs to Cream. You know, Ed Ward, John Mendelsohn, Grail Marcus, you know, all those guys. I think even Dave Marsh did. So the result of what Jann did is he's now ousted as a board member. I believe it was John Perels, I think he was, or John Landau, actually, who used to be a journalist with Rolling Stone, and he's been Springsteen's manager, I believe, ever since. If I'm saying it wrong and it's the other guy, please let me know in the comments. But he was the one dissenting vote who insisted on keeping Jann Wenner on the board. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, we've all been there. We all know it. It's the Jann Wenner Hall of Fame. The people who had an influence on Jann Wenner, and we'll throw some of the other people a bone as well, you know. So over the years, I've never been a fan of Jann Wenner. I've liked I've liked the writing in Rolling Stone. Don't get me wrong. I've liked certain articles in Rolling Stone, despite who was the head editor all those years, Jann Wenner. Some people, Jim DeRogatis, he doesn't like David Frick. I like Frick, and I think Frick, if he's still writing for whatever that thing is nowadays that calls itself Rolling Stone, he should get the hell out of there. I never liked Anthony DeCurtis, but it's kind of interesting that this guy's true colors have shown, and you could kind of say it's always been there. It's always been there. And not even acknowledging the founders of rock and roll who were black artists, you know? And I'm not going to get into the whole cultural appropriation argument and all of that stuff. I'm of two minds about that. You know, I mean, everything comes from somewhere and we all appropriate everything. So as long as we acknowledge the influences and we pay homage to those influences is what should matter. But I think I'm finally happy that this guy has gotten his just desserts, for lack of a better term. And typical of upper middle class prep school boy. And I don't want to make that a class issue. I really don't. I shouldn't. But it is an attitude of privilege. And it's good to see that because of all this, the Masters is tanking on the bookshelves. Jann Wenner. Couldn't happen to a better human being. Give me some of your thoughts. I'm sure a lot of you guys probably have some things to say about it. Give me some of your thoughts, and thank you for joining me in my room today. Till the next time.